After studying this module, you shall be able to know the meaning of non-governmental organizations, that is NGO, understand the difference between governmental and non-governmental initiatives, describe the work of NGOs for elderly in India, identify the various roles of NGOs in elderly care, and analyze the work of NGOs internationally. It is widely known that the demographic pyramid has been showing reverse trends for many years now. This means that the population of elderly in relation to the younger population is constantly and gradually increasing. This trend is far more evident in the Western and more developed countries than the third world countries. Demographers have been issuing alarming statistics in this regard for many years now. This trend can be attributed to the increasing longevity of human beings, rapid development of medical facilities, and discovery of more and more life-saving drugs have resulted in eradication of many diseases. All these put together have resulted in men and women living longer and healthier lives. Birth rate has shown a constant fall in the more industrialized as well as developing nations. Consequently, the elderly population is constantly rising. Elderly population has been identified as a social category of persons who need specialized attention. The aged individuals require assistance and special care in a number of ways, as a result of which the governments world over have formulated special policies and legislations for their welfare. But the governments face problem in addressing the needs of the elderly single-handedly. They have acknowledged the need of another category of organizations in elderly welfare, which are the non-governmental organizations or the NGOs. A huge number of non-governmental organizations are involved in the efforts of improving elderly well-being and the delivery of services. This module outlines the role of non-governmental organizations in elderly care. Non-governmental organizations or NGOs. Meaning: the term non-governmental organization was coined at about the time of the founding of the United Nations in 1945 to distinguish private organizations from intergovernmental organizations or the IGOs, such as the UN itself. Non-governmental organizations or the NGOs, as the name itself suggests, are those organizations which have no affiliation with the government and work independently towards a cause. Different sources provide different definitions to this term. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, non-governmental organization is an organization that tries to achieve social or political aims but is not controlled by a government. Encyclopedia Britannica defines non-governmental organization as a voluntary group of individuals or organizations, usually not affiliated with any government, that is formed to provide services or to advocate a public policy. It further suggests that although some NGOs are for-profit corporations, the vast majority of NGOs are non-profit organizations. A major characteristic of the NGOs is that they serve a social, political, or environmental purpose. Majority of the non-governmental organizations take up work in the area of humanitarian causes. These may include human rights, women and children rights, social or political injustice, etc. Other causes include education, environment protection, animal rights, hunger and poverty. Elderly welfare and care is also one such cause which guides many non-governmental organizations. There can be many types of non-governmental organizations. For instance, NGOs can be small or grassroots organizations working locally in an area. They may not be formally affiliated with any international body, though they may receive some international funding for local programs. On the other hand, NGOs can be transnational and work on a global scale. These NGOs may provide memberships to the individuals from all over the world and address such issues which are not restricted by national borders. NGOs in India. India as a nation has benefited by the social initiatives of the civil society since times immemorial. The traditional Indian society has laid emphasis on values of daan, giving, and seva, service, which have guided the Indian people towards always lending a helping hand to the needy. Voluntary organizations, those without any profit-making objective, were active in cultural promotion, education, health and natural disaster relief as early as the medieval era. They proliferated during British rule, working to improve social welfare and literacy, pursuing relief projects such as civil society briefs, Asian Development Bank. As such, NGOs have flourished in India for serving the society in many different ways. The government of India, right after independence, began to recognize the potential for civil society to supplement and complement its efforts in the area of social welfare and development. In order to promote social welfare activities and support people's participation programs through NGOs, the Central Social Welfare Board was established in 1953. This provided additional funding and recognition to the efforts of the NGOs, as a result of which the gamut of professional NGOs grew bigger and wider. Throughout the next 6 decades, the Government of India facilitated the growth and development of NGOs owing to their commendable efforts towards humanitarian concerns in a number of areas. According to the Asian Development Bank, India has more than 1.5 million non-governmental organizations operating in various areas today. Although a number of areas and concerns such as health, education, human rights, gender equality, etc. are addressed by these NGOs in India, we are going to focus on the NGOs working for the welfare of the elderly population. Many NGOs have worked for the elderly care in India. To name a few: HelpAge India, Dignity Foundation, International Longevity Center or ILC, Maitri, Anubhuti, etc. NGOs in elderly care. Over the years, the significance of the work of various voluntary and non-profit organizations in the field of elderly care and well-being has increased manyfold. This is so because the reach of the central and state governments is restricted by a plethora of reasons. It is also not always possible for the government to successfully implement its programs and policies only by itself. The contribution of the civil society as well as the NGOs and the voluntary non-profit organizations serves to supplement the government efforts in delivering welfare services to the elderly population as well as to ensure provision of proper facilities to them. As a result of the successful efforts of the non-governmental organizations, the government encourages their active participation in this area of work and also provides the necessary support to them. Government's 5-year plans also highlight this. Under the 8th 5-year plan, the government sought to encourage non-governmental organizations to provide old age homes and non-institutional services via a limited grants in aid program. The national policy on older persons announced in January 1999 by the government recommends promoting and assisting voluntary organizations for providing non-institutional services, construction and maintenance of old age homes, organizing services such as daycare, multi-service citizen centers, reach out services, helplines, supply of disability related aids and appliances, short-term stay services, and friendly home visits by social workers. The government provides constant support to the non-governmental voluntary organizations working for the welfare of the elderly. This can come in the form of grants and financial aids, recognition and certification, etc. Within the NGO-friendly environment created by the central and state governments, along with the support and facilities provided, many NGOs have successfully provided care and services to the elderly. A few of the many organizations actively working in this area are discussed. Help Age India is one of the largest voluntary organizations in the country. It was formed and registered in 1978. Help Age India is the India unit of the global NGO named Help Age International, which has been particularly active in Asia for the past several years through research and advocacy. Help Age India has been working towards improving the welfare of the aged in India. It strives to create an understanding of the changing situation and the needs of the elderly in India and to promote their cause. An important goal of this organization is to create awareness about the problems faced by the elderly persons in India. Another important work that this organization engages in is to raise funds for the development of infrastructure through the medium of voluntary social service organizations that help the elderly. The major activities of Help Age India include fundraising, program development, sponsoring special events, providing medical care to the elderly, research and development, communications and publications. All of these activities support the organization's advocacy rule. Indian Association of Retired Persons was established in 1973. It undertakes a variety of programs for the welfare of retired persons. The association organizes regular talks and discussions with the authorities to highlight the problems faced by retired individuals in society. It has its headquarters in Mumbai. The membership is open to all persons above 60 years of age as well as to all retired persons. It has various publications addressing the issues associated with the elderly. This voluntary organization also provides socio-medical and financial help to its members. Another voluntary organization is the Aged Care India, which was established in 1981 as a non-profit, charitable and social welfare society. The primary objective was to work for the care of the aged people. It focuses on helping older persons to lead a healthy and dignified post-retirement life. The membership to this voluntary body is open to even the younger people. Those with 21 years of age and above can become its members. It has also been recognized by the United Nations. Aged Care India organizes free geriatric health checkup camps in Delhi for the urban poor. The organization has over time opened branches at Jaipur for Rajasthan, Shimla for Himachal Pradesh, Dehradun for Uttar Pradesh, Faridabad for Haryana, Calcutta for West Bengal and Bhopal for activities in Madhya Pradesh. Bharat Pensioners Samaj is an All India Federation of Pensioners Associations which was established in 1960 and has headquarters at New Delhi. It functions as a nodal point for pensioners retired from both central and state governments as well as quasi-governmental organizations. It draws attention to the difficulties faced by aged pensioners and other senior citizens at various forums and works to redress the grievances of its members by negotiating with concerned authorities. It holds regular seminars and conferences to highlight the difficulties of pensioners and other elderly citizens. All pensioners are eligible to become members of the organization as per the procedures laid down. M-32 is a Delhi-based NGO trying to contribute towards the welfare of the elderly women. Since its inception in 2010, M-32 has reached out to about 500 widows, providing them with midday meals, fruits, medicines, nutritional supplements and clothes. It also helps these women gain access to government benefits like medical insurance, below poverty line cards, widows and old age pension, and provides them with regular medical care as well as specialized health care for cancer, cataracts, etc. Dignity Foundation is a voluntary organization working towards the welfare of the elderly in India. It provides membership to the elderly and runs an exclusive program offering elders an enriching set of opportunities to lead a more dignified, secure and fulfilling life. The foundation also runs a helpline in many cities like Mumbai, Chennai, Pune, etc. that enables the elders to reach out for help and assistance against any kind of abuse, neglect and isolation. They publish magazine called Dignity Dialogue, which is one of the India's foremost national magazines exclusively for the 50+ age group. These are just few examples of the many NGOs working towards the elderly welfare and assisting the society in providing them a better and more dignified life. Role of NGOs. Non-governmental organizations or the NGOs have been contributing to the welfare of the elderly in more ways than one. The role of NGOs is ensuring the timely delivery of services and facilities to the elderly can be varied and quite diverse. The NGOs have a multi-pronged approach while addressing the concerns related to the elderly care. There are a number of areas for elderly care and well-being in which the active participation of NGOs and other voluntary organizations can be sought. The most important role that the NGOs play with regard to elderly care is supplementing the work of the central and state governments. The Government of India began to recognize the aged as a social category of persons who need specialized care and attention from the mid-1980s onwards. As a result, a number of policy changes were undertaken with the express purpose of addressing the needs and concerns of the elderly. A number of regulations were formulated and adopted in order to ensure the safety and security of the elderly. The rights of the aged people were outlined and exercised. Many other initiatives on similar lines were undertaken both at the central and the state level. In time, it was realized that though there was no dearth of policy formulations and legislations, their implementation was an area which required special efforts. It was soon realized that the NGOs and other voluntary organizations, along with the civil society, had tremendous potential in assisting the government in implementation of governmental initiatives which needed to be tapped. It was thus ensured by the government that the NGOs and other voluntary and non-profit organizations continued their efforts towards social causes, including the welfare of the elderly. The NGOs were therefore allowed more liberty in their operations and procurement of funds. The process of obtaining foreign aids and grants was also made smooth and easy. Restrictions were relaxed and sanctions on NGOs were eventually eased. All this was done in order to ensure that the NGOs and the other organizations worked in this direction and the benefits of their efforts could be enjoyed by the relatively weaker sections of the society. As the social and political environment within the country was made more conducive for the operation of NGOs, more and more NGOs sprang up in the country with the objective of helping the elderly. The civil society too volunteered for improving the lives of the members of the disadvantaged and vulnerable sections of the society, including the elderly. A number of initiatives such as construction of old age homes, creating awareness in the society, provision of basic necessities, etc. These initiatives, however, differed from the governmental initiatives in that these initiatives were not taken by either the central or the state governments, rather by the non-governmental and voluntary organizations. Secondly, the funding for these efforts did not come from the government account. Instead, it comes from the NGO starting the respective program or initiative. The source of the NGO's funds can be governmental aids and grants, donations from concerned citizens, foreign grants, or the donations from NRIs or the non-resident Indians. Supplementing the implementation of governmental initiatives. The governmental initiatives address the needs of the elderly from multiple perspectives. The national policy on older persons was announced in January 1999 by the government, which recommended that owing to their vulnerable status, the elderly require special facilities like old age homes, services such as daycare, multi-service citizen centers, reach-out services, helplines, disability-related aids and appliances, short-term stay services, etc. The government has undertaken various initiatives in this regard with the intention of reaching out to the needy elderly in every section of society. Although various legislations and laws are in place, their implementation on the ground remains an area of concern. An important contribution in this regard has been made by the NGOs. NGOs play the role of assisting the government in successful implementation of its initiatives. In other words, NGOs supplement the work of the government in ensuring the benefits of the government initiatives reach the target individuals at all levels of the society. NGOs serve as the link between the origin and end point of the governmental initiatives. The government disburses financial aids and grants through the NGOs to the elderly. There are many schemes of the government which have been made more successful with the active participation of the NGOs. For instance, the old age pension scheme required the disbursement of funds to the aged people through bank accounts. Although this scheme was initiated by the government, many NGOs contributed to its success by creating awareness about the scheme, assisting the elderly in opening bank accounts, and helping with the required documents, etc. This role of the NGOs has been widely recognized by the government as well as the members of the civil society. The non-governmental organizations or the NGOs regularly play an important role in providing government-initiated services and facilities to the elderly in need, thus making government initiatives a bigger success. Creative awareness of government programs and schemes. As discussed in the previous section, NGOs play a crucial role in helping the government implement its programs and policies more successfully. An important step in this process is creating awareness of these programs and policies among the target population. This awareness is the necessary prerequisite to the successful implementation of programs and policies. The traditional methods adopted by the government in order to make people aware of its new schemes include advertising in print and electronic media and posters in government offices. These methods, though effective, sometimes fail to reach all the target individuals. NGOs can help tremendously in this regard. NGOs help in creating awareness among the people by using not only the traditional methods but also some novel ways. NGOs have been effectively using their websites to propagate the information related to the governmental programs and schemes. Apart from this, NGOs normally disseminate such information to the existing groups of elderly in need through their own database. NGOs maintain records of the elderly people in their area of scope and keep in constant touch with them. The volunteers provide door-to-door service to these elderly individuals as per the need of the hour. These door-to-door visits serve as a very effective method of creating awareness among not only the target of these initiatives, that is the elderly, but also the other people of the society. Information and support in case of elderly abuse. India is a collectivistic society. It means that the family holds salience over individual. In other words, the collective goals of a group or family are given more importance than the individual goals. The family and social relations form an integral part of an individual's self-identity. It was traditionally believed that the aged population of India is well taken care of owing to its collectivistic society. But there have been gradual but definitive changes in the social structure of the country. The family setups are now changing rapidly and the joint family system is slowly breaking away. As a consequence, the elderly are not being maintained by their children. This exposes the elderly to emotional neglect and lack of physical and financial support. This also makes them more vulnerable to fraud, cheating, assault, and other crimes. With growing awareness and information sharing, it has been realized that the elderly are at a high risk of abuse and assault as a result of a number of factors, some of which are cited above. What is more alarming is that this abuse and assault against the elderly come from the primary caregivers and family members in a majority of cases. The aged and the elderly people are a highly susceptible group of the society because of their physical, cognitive, social and sometimes financial vulnerabilities. The statistics highlighting the abuse of the elderly are alarmingly high. Chadha and Bhatia in 2009 have delineated the different types of abuse meted out to the elderly. These include physical, sexual, psychological, financial, social, environmental abuse and self-neglect. In such a dire scenario, there is a lot which can be done by the non-governmental organizations. Although the government has laws in place, they fall short in implementing these laws, especially in the case of the elderly. NGOs adopt a multifaceted approach in this regard. They serve to ensure that the elderly people are protected against abuse, assault, fraud and other types of crimes. If such crimes have taken place, the NGOs ensure that they are adequately reported and perpetrators are brought to justice. The primary role of the NGOs in this regard is spreading awareness among the elderly as to what amounts to abuse in their context. They make the aged individuals aware of their rights and serve to give them a voice in case they wish to report a crime. They also issue handbooks and other material outlining the information related to the crimes against elderly. For instance, a handbook for the elderly was launched in Bangalore giving guidelines on crime prevention, causes of crimes against the elderly, role of police and other agencies in providing safety, as well as the role of neighbors and other members of community. NGOs also play an important role in detection of crimes against elderly. The volunteers associated with various NGOs are actively involved in doing welfare checks on the elderly to ensure that they are not abused and are being taken care of in a proper manner. They go door to door and personally interact with the elderly within their area. In this way, they also provide a sympathetic ear to the problems and complaints of the elderly related to any kind of abuse they are subjected to. An especially important role played by the NGOs is starting special helplines for the elderly to report any kind of abuse or discomfort they are facing. Many NGOs run such helplines. For instance, the Nightingale's Medical Trust is an NGO in Bangalore which runs a helpline for the elderly jointly with the city's police department. Those elderly individuals who come forward to report abuse against them are not always capable, either physically or cognitively or both, of pursuing their complaints till the time punishment is served to the perpetrators because of their inabilities. The NGOs, through their volunteers, provide services for the assistance required by the elderly in pursuing their case. These might include transport facility, legal advice and support, etc. In this way, it is clear that the NGOs play a very significant role in addressing concerns related to the elderly abuse as well as taking necessary preventive steps ensuring the safety and security of the elderly. They also provide curative measures after the crimes against the elderly have been reported. Starting helplines for the elderly. Helplines are special phone lines started for a particular group of society which is vulnerable in one way or the other. As discussed before, the elderly people have been identified as a vulnerable group of society. This requires special measures by the government as well as police departments in order to ensure their safety and security. Starting helplines for the elderly is an effective method of providing them with an opportunity to seek information or share their problems as well as report any crime. NGOs have made an important contribution in this regard. Most of the NGOs working towards elderly welfare have their own helplines on which the elderly can call up in order to obtain information required by them or for other purposes. The NGOs also provide telephonic counseling for the elderly in order to address their concerns. They also provide toll-free numbers which the elderly can call at without worrying about the expenses. Starting helplines is an effective measure because it is highly inconvenient for the elderly people to commute and reach the office of an NGO or any other organization in order to obtain particular information. The elderly may be physically incapable or financially unable to undertake this travel. Thus, providing the opportunity to obtain and share information telephonically is more convenient and cost effective for the elderly. This is another important role played by the NGOs in elderly welfare. These helplines have proved to be quite effective. Fundraising. Another important role played by the NGOs in elderly care is fundraising. This means mobilizing finances in order to meet the expenses of elderly care. Elderly as a susceptible social group require specialized attention and assistance in terms of medications, accommodation, walking support, and specially designed infrastructure. All these require robust finances and monetary backing. There are many sources of funds for the NGOs, but nevertheless they have to engage in fundraising activities in order to sustain the monetary requirements. They engage civil society, concerned citizens, both here and abroad, financially capable members of the society, corporate sponsors, and international organizations for mobilizing finances which are meant to be used for the welfare of the elderly. This is an important role of the NGOs as this provides the base on which further work for the welfare of the aged can be done. This also ensures the survival of the NGO itself as well as its future development. With more finances, the NGOs can serve larger number of elderly people and provide better facilities and services to them. Community development. We in India live in a closely knit society. This can be attributed to the values of collectivism inherent in our social lives. This kind of social structure ensures a strong community around us in which members share common goals and help each other on a regular basis. In such a scenario, the contribution of the members of the community to the welfare of the disadvantaged and vulnerable groups of the society is immense. This is true for the elderly members of the society as well. It is true that the aged people can benefit from the support of the other members of the community. Acknowledging the community as an important part of our lives, NGOs working for elderly welfare ensure community development and mobilization towards the cause of helping and supporting the elderly. This is yet another important role the NGOs play in ensuring the welfare of the elderly. They create awareness as well as sensitize the members of the community towards the needs of the elderly as well as the problems faced by them. They strive to change the negative perceptions towards the elderly prevalent in the society as well as break the stereotypes. They also try to highlight the importance of the elderly in the society and project them as the resources that they truly are. They challenge the belief of elderly as burden on society. NGOs also facilitate social interaction among the elderly and other members of the community, which serves to reduce the isolation and segregation of the elderly. This is done by encouraging the younger members of the community to participate and initiate social groups or clubs for the elderly. Thus, NGOs play an important role in shaping the perception of people toward the elderly as well as ensuring social contact between younger and older members of the community by providing common platforms for interaction. Summary: elderly people have been identified by the Government of India as a class of persons requiring specialized attention. The government has taken concrete steps ensuring their welfare. Non-governmental organizations or the NGOs serve the society by working towards a social cause, and majority are non-profit organizations. NGOs in India have worked for elderly welfare. Many NGOs such as HelpAge India, Age Care India, Dignity Foundation, etc. are actively involved in ensuring the delivery of services to the elderly. NGOs play many important roles in this regard, such as supplementing the implementation of governmental initiatives, creating awareness of government programs and schemes, information and support in case of elderly abuse, starting helplines for the elderly, fundraising and community development.